Testing 1, 2. Oh, we're live. We are live. 52 people watching. Hello, friends from the community.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're always honored when you attend one of our single-issue meetings. We're here to talk about Restart. I'm going to give a slight overview of where we are right now, put forth some answers to questions that tend to come up, explain how there's been slight adjustments to our plan, which we said was a liquid document subject to change. As of right now, it is our full intent to open school for those families who have opted for live instruction. When we did our 2 surveys, about 25% of the population stated that they were in favor of all virtual instruction. That number has risen to about 35%. But there's still a majority of families that want children in school live, and that is our intent. What can change that? If the governor says we need to go all virtual, we have no choice. B, if we run out of teachers. And I say that with the idea that some staff members need very legitimate accommodations, and we have been able to provide them. And we'll do that. I'll talk more about that later. But some districts are facing a shortage of teachers. And I have to say that our teachers union has been quite excellent. Met with them last Thursday. They stated that they are all in on the opening. So I am very, very, very impressed with that. As I said, the only way we don't open is the governor says so, or I have a sudden difficulty with providing supervision and instruction for kids, and I don't anticipate that.
So we have a good thing going on right now from the standpoint of, right now, even though the numbers have shifted slightly, the large majority of families still want to be able to send their children to school based on our plan. The Board of Ed still is supporting us going to school with our plan. The county superintendent still supports it. The teachers union still supports it. So as long as we're all together, our plan works. In the communities where things are changing, you see the community really switch from their previous thoughts. So in other words, if we heard all of a sudden 70% of our families wanted to go virtual, we would have to take a long look at what our plan is. Or if we found out, like Mr. D says, we're not going to have any teachers, we have to change it. But right now, it's a beautiful thing that everyone is in lockstep. So we're able to move forward with our plan as is.
We fully respect the families who want to go all virtual. Some of them have health reasons. Some have grandparents living in a home. Others have children who have at-risk conditions. We totally respect that. My guess is that if we are successful in our opening, some of the 35% who opted for virtual will come back to us. And many parents have asked the question, if they go all virtual now, can they come back? And that answer is yes. There will be a little bit of a process with that, but it will be enabled. Why school? Why does your superintendent, Mr. Di Benedetto, and your assistant superintendent, Mr. Piccirillo, your Board of Education, your teachers union, why do we think that kids need to be in school? Well, I stopped up at the band practice the other day. Team sports have started, not all of them yet, some next week and the week after. But the band, the football team, and a couple of other sports have begun. And it takes about 1 minute to look at those kids and see the importance of belonging to something. Kids need structure. They need an environment where things are laid out for them in terms of expectations, and they take pride in meeting those expectations. We've had no problems with kids respecting protocol as we opened up high school activities. Is it the same for little kids? You don't need for me to tell you that. Many parents have shared emails saying it's vital that their child has live instruction because the structure itself allows that child to do better than when he or she is home in front of a computer screen. So I believe from my heart that live instruction, as long as it is safely put forward, is vital to the success of children, and we're going to do our very best to enable that circumstance.
And Mr. D, it's important that everyone here and watching at home realizes that, first of all, we're operating under a couple just presumptions here, right? First, no one that feels uncomfortable sending their children to school has to, right? It's important everyone realize that. If you wanted to go all virtual, you could go all virtual. So people, I'm not judging anyone that feels like they want to keep their child home. That is a family decision. And if you make that decision, we respect that. But also understand this. If I think in my previous meeting with everybody, I shared with you, we had 100+ page document of rules and regulations to follow. Since then, we had to share our plan after meeting with all of our different teams that we had to put together. We had to share our plan with the county superintendent. She went through it with a checklist. She approved that plan. That plan is based on regulations from the Department of Health, the governor's office,
CDC.
the CDC. These things also get updated as new science comes out. So I don't want anyone in this room to think that just because we think education is important, we're going to open up. While we do believe education is important, we think kids should be in school, we're doing it only because we are meeting a ridiculous amount of regulations that were approved already that we are doing to ensure the safety of the students. Now, one other thing we'll get into is, does that mean no one will get sick? We can't promise that, right? No one can promise that. And if they promise you that, they're lying to you. No one can make that promise. All we can do is promise that we are meeting all the regulations, and we are. The other thing just to alert you to is, in September, in the start of school year, every year, kids get sick. And I want you to know that. This is from experience as an educator, as a teacher, as a principal. September, it always happens. Kids have not been inside that long. They haven't been with different students that long. And kids will come with colds. They will come with, you'll see pink eye and all sorts of other normal beginning of the year things. It's not a reason for panic. It's just a reason for this is the start of school. So we do have strict regulations to follow to see if that is a possible, probable case. But understand, just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean colds don't still happen, strep throat doesn't still happen, etc.
We will have about 800 students live in our 4 schools. On an A-B schedule, that means approximately 400 kids, a little more, but not much more, will be going to school for live instruction. That should allow us very easily to maintain distancing. Our buses are quite simple because so many parents have opted to drive their children in. We understand and respect that too. So we believe that the conditions that we're putting ourselves and our children in are conducive to a successful opening. Let me go over some of the specifics so that you have an idea as to where we are after. Remember, we put forth our first meeting, I believe, on July 5th. We had a plan then. It hasn't changed much. So I'm very proud that all the people who were involved in planning put together something that has some fortitude to it. Couple of items. Why half days? Why 4-hour days? Because we can't do physical education and we can't do lunch. And if you add those two periods to a day, it's almost a full day.
A half day is a bit of a misnomer. It's really an early dismissal day, because if you did all the math, we're going to be in school more than half a day of school.
The governor has stated very specifically, masks are required for staff and for students. That means that children must show up with a mask, whether they're on the bus or whether they're driven. We do have children's masks available if they're necessary, and we will obviously give them out.
And this is one of the few changes since we originally shared our plan. And again, this is out of our control. This is a governor executive order. And we may see more of those, but this is one exception of how our plan changed.
Interestingly, research on masks is becoming more evident. There are masks called gator masks. They tend to come around the neck and
It looks like that.
those will not be allowed in school. The research demonstrates that they are not effective, but the kind of masks that many of us are wearing will be fine. Days 1 and 2, we promised an A and B schedule. A for 1 week, B for the next week. The only exception to that will be on days 1, which is a Thursday, and day 2, which is a Friday. And the reason we're doing that, we want our teachers to meet their kids as soon as possible. So on Thursday, if I'm a teacher, my A students will be here, and on Friday, my B students will be in, so at least I can put a face to a name in case something happens and they say go virtual. To me, it was a lot easier last spring. We went virtual after many months in school. Everybody knew each other. School districts that are going all virtual now, I believe, are putting their teaching staff at somewhat of a disadvantage because they don't know the kids. With the exception of one 7th grade teacher who's going to 8th grade, she's the only person in the district who knows every one of their kids, with the exception of some special ed classes. So that's why we're getting a rush on A and B, Thursday and Friday. After that, it's week A. After that, the next week, it's week B.
And I want to just go back for a second, because I think we're both operating under the assumption that you're familiar with our plan. So I know a lot of these are, while you're masked, I know there are familiar faces in this room. If you're unfamiliar with the plan, essentially what we're doing is an A week and a B week. So you'll have a group of students come 1 week while half the students are virtual. The next week, the virtual students will come in and the other half will be in instruction. Now, when I say half, it's half of the remaining students. Mr. D said about 35% of our students are opting for all virtual. So take that remaining 30-some% of students, they're attending 1 week while the other are watching virtual, then they will switch. The
only exception, grade 1.
The only exception, I'm going to say only and then give you a list of exceptions. The only exceptions are first grade. First grade will be going every day, regardless of, there's no A week, B week for first grade. The reason for that is our first grade class is small enough that we can do that. And look, when we can do that and maintain social distancing, we want to do that. For first grade, we were able to do that, and we said, gee, that's really good, because first grade, you could say this about any grade, truly, is an important grade. But just think of the things you'll learn first grade. It's important for learning how to read, and that sets you really at a disadvantage if you can't get that in-person instruction. Another exception would be many special ed students, not all, but many special ed students will be going in person if they choose every day. So that's MD, BD.
LLD.
He's got a list of it, it's so good. LLD, and our preschool disabled students. So those are some important and notable exceptions to that rule.
During virtual days, what can a student expect and what can a parent expect in terms of instruction? Last year in the spring, given 2 days notice, we did it differently than we'll do this year. Joe, could you explain synchronous instruction, please? I can never say that word.
Yeah, these are words we never really used until the last few months. Synchronous and asynchronous. Add it to your list of new words like the new normal and a bunch of other things you could add. But I'll use the high school as an example. The high school has an 8-period day. They will be setting it up this way. On an average week, a Monday will be periods 1 through 4. Tuesday will be 5 through 8. Wednesday will be 1 through 4. Thursday will be 5 through 8. And Friday will be all periods, albeit shortened. While if a student is not in person, so it's their virtual week, they will know that at whatever the time is, 8 o'clock, their period 5 starts. They will log in, they will click on their Google Meet, and they will watch a live instruction synchronously with the other students. So an example is, right now, 143 of other community members are joining us synchronously for this meeting. They're not watching a recording of it later, they're watching it in live time. If they had a question, and I know some of them already have sent it to me, they can send me an email and I can answer them in live time. It's a lot different than a recording. So that is a noted difference from what it was earlier when we were largely doing just work on it at your leisure, on your own time, asynchronous instruction. All of our teachers will have cameras in their room. They will only be pointed at the teacher. They're not going to be showing kids, but they'll be mounted and pointing towards them, just like we have one here. They'll also have little earbuds that have a microphone built into them so that they can hear that the sound is strong coming through and you don't get an echo. They can hear any kid talking to them and they can speak, and it goes as a direct line in. I think this will be very helpful. And keeping in mind, they're also going to be able to use Google Classroom and all those online supplemental materials that they would use anyway. So I've had lots of really great feedback. I've talked to them about this. It seems like this was to making it more successful being virtual. So we are providing PD, professional development, for our teachers in trying to get this as smooth as possible. That will be the first 2 days before the kids come back to school. And we're going to be speaking with the Board of Education next week about getting an additional professional development day on September 11th so that our teachers have even more supports so that they're providing the best instruction.
Similarly, at the earlier grades, if ELA is taught as the first part of the day, the students will be able to do the same thing with ELA instruction from their teacher. As kids get younger, we understand that that's a little more difficult. I know that many families have identified childcare issues. B, some parents have said that grandparents are watching the kids and they're not tech savvy. C, a child's attention span at that age has some challenges. So at the earlier grade levels, they'll be using some software created by different companies that's developmentally appropriate to the age of the kids to supplement what that teacher does. One item that you may not be familiar with has to do with the fact that this room, depending upon the number of kids, or half the auxiliary gym, will be a daycare center set up by Alphabest to assist those families who have childcare issues. Alphabest has agreed to provide the service. It is not inexpensive. We are looking for ways to lower the cost, but that will depend on how many people opt for sending their kids to school on a virtual week for childcare purposes. The children will do the same thing in this room or the auxiliary gym as they would at home. They'll receive instruction via computer in sync with their teachers.
And I want to be fair to Alphabest. You know, they have to make sure that they meet regulations. So when I think what is the price, Mr. D? It's like $45
a
day. They don't have a lot of flexibility. I mean, they have to have a ratio of faculty to student. They have to meet certain guidelines like we do. So I don't believe that they're price gouging us. I think they're giving us the fairest price they can give us.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Packard is one of the only places I know that was able to offer before and after care for kids, and this idea of a place for them to be virtual. I have so many friends who are struggling with childcare, so thank you and thank them. I know it's been hard.
And before and after care is a given.
This is Nicole. Do you know Nicole? She's on the Board of Education. She's masked. It's hard to tell.
Each school will arrange for the distribution of books and technology if the kids don't have it. So you'll be contacted by principals. There'll be a system of getting equipment. For example, kindergarten and first grade kids don't have technology. We will provide that technology to them. The principals will let you know how that technology goes out. If I'm a history teacher in a high school and I want to give my kids a book, the high school principal will give out the information as to when that is. By the way, if you don't know and you have a high school age student, Mr. Bernardo is on leave, medical leave, and Ms. Stephanie Martinez has been named, what's the word?
Acting principal.
Acting principal. Lunch will not be eaten in school. However, you have the ability to purchase lunch. Kids will pick it up as they leave the school and be able to eat it at home. If you're on free and reduced lunch, those lunches will be provided while the kids are in school, and there'll be a pickup system for the week the child is virtual. So those meals will be given out. If kids need breakfast or want to buy breakfast, they will be able to do so, and they will eat that breakfast in the classroom. Accommodations. I mentioned last meeting that both teachers and students may require accommodations, so we do have some teachers who will be instructing from their homes because of at-risk conditions. The number is not large, and of course those kids that they normally teach will be supervised in school, but the instruction will emanate from the home. And there's about 5 or 6 people in that situation right now.
And they'll be supervised by a licensed, certified person. So an example would be a teacher that might not have an assignment or a substitute. I just want to clarify that.
There are also student accommodations. I've gotten a handful of notes from physicians, psychiatrists, neurologists. So I do have a small handful of kids, probably 3 or 4, who will be at school for medical reasons for both the A and B week. I also have medical notes from kids saying as to why they're going virtual. I didn't ask for those notes. Parents have been very open with us. One of the items we need to guard against, and we're depending upon honesty, if you travel to a state that's restricted and you return closer to 14 days before school starts, Those kids need to be quarantined. That's a must. They must be virtual. And we will have a parent note going out with how you identify that if it's a problem.
If you go onto our website right now, there's a banner that has these children running back to school. It says reopening plan, click on it. It'll take you to our district plan, and then it has tabs for each building. Included on that district plan are 2 forms to what Mr. D is saying. One is a checklist for faculty and staff so that before they go to work each day, they can reflect, look at this checklist and make sure that they don't have symptoms or they haven't visited someplace or been in contact with the virus, so they know that they wouldn't come in under those circumstances. Same thing for students. I would invite parents to go and look at that list, get used to going through that list with your child. Ultimately, it's the parent's responsibility to not send sick children to school. That's never not been the case, but right now it's of even more importance that you are familiar with that checklist. Mr. D, I do have questions coming in, and I can take them whenever you're ready, but I want you to know I have some.
If they're related to what we're talking about, feel free. Ladies and gentlemen, a child who has a fever is going to be isolated. It's going to be very uncomfortable. Please don't send your child to school with a fever. Please, if a child has a small fever, don't give the child a Tylenol or anything like that. That will reduce the fever for a couple of hours. I just spent thousands of dollars on protective equipment for our nurses because every time a child has something that's symptomatic, we need to act quickly and we need to be safe. In the last 2 weeks, we've spent about $60,000 on everything from isolation gowns for nurses, N95 masks, masks for children, screens for teacher desks, screen for some student desks. I don't mind spending that money. We'll find where to spend it. But it becomes a waste of money if we're not upfront with each other. And that's going to be a vital component of the ability to be successful. Water fountains. Students should not drink out of water fountains. They should bring water bottles or water containers to school. Hallways. Hallways will be restricted for the earlier grades. An art teacher will visit a second grade classroom as opposed to the second grade going down a hall to the art room. The only exception to that right now is the high school, where kids change classes every period, and we're going to have to let them go through the hallways. They will be instructed as to how to do so in as safe a manner as possible. Can I guarantee social distancing between high school kids? It would be foolish of me to say, yes, I could do that. But we're going to do the best we can. Visitor access. We will not have visitors to our school. If you have to pick a child up, there'll be an area that'll be restricted, and we'll get the child to you. We can't have visiting teachers from other places. We can't have new people who are registering. We're going to have to make an appointment, and we'll have to meet them at a site that is safe. It's very important that we try to maintain the medical dignity of the building. Parent conferences will be virtual. I believe that will allow less of a dependency on night meetings, and it will be something that we can do. Unfortunately, we've all become rather accustomed to Zoom and Google Meets, and that's the way we'll do parent conferences at this point in time. Someone asked me if the A and B groups are balanced. The answer is no. Okay, so we had 25% virtual after the surveys, now it's 35%. There's some imbalance on the A's and B's. It's not a statistically significant, but it's not 50-50 either.
Well, the one thing to just realize is we just think of an example. I mean, we do our best to balance it, and it's more practicable at the younger ages. So you'll probably see more of a balance in the younger grades. But once they get to the high school and they're changing classes, not one kid has the exact same schedule as another kid. So you may have a class that's perfect 50-50, and then some kids may have the same exact, the contrarian here. You may find a couple that are the same schedule. But chances are you'll have a class that maybe has a 50-50 split, and then the next class might have a 75-25 split. It's not really a thing we're able to control 100%.
But because the numbers are not gigantic, we feel very strongly that the classrooms will be safe. We will need to move a few teachers out of certain classrooms on certain periods because they have more kids coming in. We should be able to do that without any difficulty. Buses, we're in very good shape with buses between the 35% kids not coming and there's so many parents driving. Social distancing on busing will not be an issue. We have a lot of questions about mask breaks. I have to be careful here because sometimes I say things at these meetings that causes the principal to get upset with me. But I personally believe, and will push this with the principals, that kids are going to need breaks, even if it's just walking around the building a couple of times in lieu of recess, because the kids need to move. During that time, as long as they're distanced, we have a mask break. But while they're in school, masks are required, staff and students.
All right, so this question, similar questions have been flying. Masks are a big topic. Everybody wants to know about the masks. So several people have messaged me saying, okay, you mentioned that now they have to wear masks, but are there still exceptions to the masks? There are. So, okay, before the governor said, the governor's words were, wear masks when social distancing is not practicable. That was his quote. Paraphrase, perhaps. Then it became, wear masks with the following exceptions, right? So he basically made it more of a mask yes statement with caveats rather than no masks with other way. The exceptions are this: students' health. So you will have some students that can't wear a mask because of health reasons. Students are extreme heat outdoors. Students are in water. Students are eating. A lot of these are very obvious. They get so specific to say if a student is suffocating, like these are obvious things. So essentially, think of it this way. You're going to wear a mask unless there's an extraordinary circumstance related to your health, in which case we would need a doctor's note, or you're eating or drinking. That's the general exceptions to the rule. We don't have phys ed, so the chances that they would be, running are not going to present themselves as much as some school districts that might be trying to do phys ed might have.
I do have parents who gave me a note about asthma. The student can't wear a mask. Very few, but we do have accommodations for kids. Physical education will be all virtual unless kids are getting health instruction from a physical education teacher. That would be a classroom activity. But for the most part, physical education will be a virtual exercise.
Mr. D, some questions about, you made reference to parents changing their minds. How can they continue to change their minds if they, for example, are an A student and want to go virtual? Is there ever a time that there's going to be a deadline or a no longer can make a change?
I got to stretch, so I'm going off camera for a second.
We talked about this. You said you'd never leave.
I can set a deadline on changing, but if somebody needs to change after the deadline, I got to do it anyway. I would love to say, I would like to know by Friday if you're going to change your mind. But that doesn't mean I'm going to say no if you give me something on Wednesday of next week. But ideally, for planning, it would be great to know by the end of this week where you want your kid. Answer?
It's good. Questions about back to school night, conferences, orientations? You mentioned
Right.
a little bit about it.
Orientation. We will have a kindergarten parent orientation, I believe on September 1st. Is that accurate, Madam Principal?
There she is.
Okay. September 1st in the evening, we will allow one parent to visit the school, to talk about the kindergarten program and to see the classrooms. At grade 4, I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah, you're right.
grade 4. I'm getting old for this. At grade 4, that's a transition grade. We will have an orientation for kids to see the school and find their classrooms. The principal is planning that. At the high school, we will have an orientation for kids going into grade 8. That will be kids only, familiar with the school, classrooms, programs. I haven't gotten an answer yet from Mr. Byrne about grade 2. More to follow on that, and that'll go on the website. So we are doing things a little bit differently. As I said, parent conferences are virtual. What was the other one? Orientation, parent conference, and what?
Back to school.
Back to school, we haven't made a final decision yet.
Some folks asking about resources that you mentioned, some software for teaching. This is really different at each of the buildings and different for each of the subject areas. So, for example, some schools use Mystery Science. I'm looking at Ms. McFadden over there. At Durban, they have Mystery Science. There's an online component of that where students can view online materials that are related to science at home. Different grade levels have National Geographic. Same thing, they have resources they can use. So these are supplemental materials that the teacher would have used in the classroom previously, but now may send that out to be more virtual. Go to this website that is a school monitored software website. That's all.
Kindergarten and first grade students will be getting iPads, correct?
They will be getting iPads.
So we've ordered significant numbers of computers for the kindergarten and first grade kids who do not have the technology. I can't take questions now, we gotta keep going. Snack time in the elementary grades will be continued. That will be a mask break too. The kids will eat in the classroom. The elementary students will not be leaving the classroom very often. But they do need to do something. So I'm working that out with the principals. I'm going to wait to the end to take questions, sir. The reason I'm waiting to the end because I can't hear you. So when you have a question at the end, I'll ask you to come forward so that you can project your voice. There's been a little bit of an issue about ventilation. Schools are not like hospitals. Our ventilation systems are not as sophisticated, but the school ventilation systems meet the basic requirements that need to be done. In areas like nurses' offices, we will have the machines we just delivered today. We'll have air machines that will stimulate the ventilation in the nurse's office, changing air on a much more constant basis than we currently have. The website, everything on the website is up to date and accurate. What I've shared with you tonight is of course up to date and accurate. Have we completed everything yet? No, we still have some items to work out, such as back to school nights and things like that. But generally speaking, I believe that we're well prepared, especially given the manageable numbers that we have. I'm not surprised if some of our neighboring districts that are larger in size close down and go virtual only. But right now, as Joseph said, a majority of our clientele want us to open. If you have a question, And we're going to go back and forth. One question from the audience, one question from the computer. But if you have a question, I need you to come up front, face the audience, and talk much louder than you normally do. Sir, please. You got to project your voice.
How are you going to enforce that for your kids that they're not wearing and they're supposed to be wearing?
A kid who's not wearing a mask?
Yeah, versus kids that may have a medical condition not wearing. How are you going to actually, make it easier, for these children that, I mean, there's fights breaking out.
Well,
so how are you going to protect our kids?
we are educators. Our job is to educate children. Wearing a mask in a pandemic is a teaching moment. So our responsibility is to teach students that they need to be worn. It's not an easy process, but it's like a child who has a cast on his arm for the first time. That child has to get used to it. That child has to be coddled. That child has to be taught. That's our job. We will do it. I don't believe there's going to be fights over masks. If kids are oppositionally defiant about masks to the point where we can't handle it, they will go to virtual instruction. But I'm not out to punish kids. I'm out to teach kids. Thank you, sir. Joe, from the audience.
Yeah, this is a question that has come in several different forms. People asking a lot, I'm getting a lot of hypothetical situations of if a kid has a confirmed case, what happens? If a kid has
All on a website.
if you go on our main page, the district website, you will see it says district containment guidelines. These guidelines these are the same guidelines you'll see across all the districts in the county, because this is coming from the Department of Health. It says steps for if there's a confirmed case or a probable case or just symptoms or you're in close contact. We have to follow these to the letter of the law. So I would instruct everyone to just look at that. I'll refer, I just can't go through the whole thing. It'll take a long time, but it's there in black and white for you on our website.
Yes, sir. With a hop, that's what we like.
What will the technology solution be? Then I have a second grader, of course. Will it be the same, like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, something else, Google Classroom? And will it be the same for every class, hopefully?
We have a district-approved modality for doing this. It's all through Google. So Google Apps for Education, the Google Suite, we use it across the board. The reason for that is for continuity between classes and because it integrates all the different areas we're using, from LMS to email to docs to, you could go down the whole thing. So Zoom has had some security issues, so schools have really moved away from it. So if you find out your child is using anything other than Google Meet, that will be news to me. I would love to know about that, but it should all be Google Meet.
Okay. Small mini question you asked me. Some teachers physically will be at home all the time.
Yes, sir.
Classroom full of kids with a proctor in the corner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Why would a teacher be teaching from home? I have teachers who have had organ transplants. I've had teachers who have significant I can't say the word, deficiencies. Those people can't be in a circumstance of the public. As I said, there's not too many of them, but they do exist. Interestingly, most of them exist at the high school, where it is easiest for us to replace them. Your turn.
Questions about when they will get devices?
They'll get the device. First of all, we're still waiting for deliveries, and the principals will let each parent know when the devices are ready.
Mea culpa. I'm not talking about devices. I'm talking about mask break. No, I'm talking about for students that are going virtual only, they will have to pick up materials.
Right. That's what I said. The principals will let people know when that's going to be enabled.
Good.
We're going to try our best to do it before the first day of school. We're dependent upon right now, some of our providers have promised us deliveries. They haven't all taken place. But I'm very confident that we will have the technology ready before day one or on day one. Yes.
Will the children,
Let everybody hear that voice.
will the children that are 100% virtual have the same opportunities to ask questions or participate when the teacher asks questions, or is it just an
Yes.
answer after school?
So
Google Meet, I'm going to answer a technology question. Joe's going to
Sure.
fall off the chair. Google Meet allows someone at home, allows their voice to be part of the class, yes.
Yes, I understand. How, if my daughter was in it for the last, yeah, but now there'll be kids physically in as well. So will she be able to hear both? Because I know they said, A schedule, say it's a B week in your home.
Yes.
Your watch only. But how about the kids that are virtual only?
There will be opportunity to interact with those kids,
Okay,
both ways.
okay.
Right, Joe?
And yes, the answer is yes. Teachers also will have time to, in their schedule, to outreach to the kids that are virtual only. And here's an example. So if
55 minutes.
you are someone that's never going to be here in front of me, I feel like you need to have an opportunity at least to maybe one time we can touch base on a Google Meet, just me and you for 5 minutes. So I can just ask you how you're doing. Because otherwise, at least the other kids will know every other week they'll have time in class. But regardless, yeah, you can always just say, hey, I have a question, and talk to the teacher, or you could write the teacher a message on live time.
The other kids won't hear them, only her with the device, correct?
Yep.
And paperwork, will they ever have to come in, like, will the parents ever have to pick up anything? Or it's all typing?
Well, I think that the hope is that we move toward mostly virtual rather than paperwork. Is there a chance that there might be paper at some point? Yeah, I suppose so. But in general, we are way more prepared now than we were at the end of this past year to go more fully virtual. Some people are asking how to know if they're an A week versus a B week versus a virtual in case they want to change. If you go into Power School, into the parent portal, you will see that distinction there. It says A, B, and I believe it's E for electronic. Is that, I see Ms. McFadden saying yes and Ms. Miller. E for electronic. So you'll be able to see it there. And if you want to change it, you just email this guy.
Email the superintendent, please, so we have some quality control over all the changes. Over here.
Question about a student who's ill.
Can't hear you.
A student who's ill.
Yes.
And we're keeping them home. For my fourth and eighth graders, I understand they can just jump into the virtual for the week that they're not there. But my first grader, is there going to be a virtual option? Will those teachers be streaming at all if they're every day?
We want to make it so that virtual instruction will replace snow days. We want to make it so virtual instruction will replace the need for substitutes, which you can't do. But the answer to that is yes.
Okay, so he'd be able to.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you. That's a unique question.
Question about how classrooms are going to be cleaned, and what, okay, so to this one question, we can't clean classrooms in between students being there during the day. So, for example, your period 2 class leaves and period 3 comes in. I can't clean it in between classes, but it will be cleaned nightly. We do have specific protocols we follow for that.
And as needed.
And as needed if there's a reason to.
We will have extra custodial staff at each school to make sure that if there is a need for sanitizing, it will be done. However, if I'm teaching second period history, and my class ends, I can't have somebody sanitize the room without delaying us for 15 minutes. It's just not practicable. Question over here in the blue.
I apologize for the answer, but for the high school students who are doing periods 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8, what will the students be doing during lunch and gym break?
They'll be in a study hall. Yes.
So 2 periods.
Some phys ed kids will be taking health, but lunch itself will be a study hall. Good question.
Can I ask one more question?
As long as you talk loudly.
High school scheduling. So are any of the classes canceled that you're aware of? Each year, sometimes kids, especially the honors kids, can't get into certain classes because of scheduling.
I'm going to be honest with you.
This year?
I'm going to be honest with you. We have done our very best to maintain all of the classes. The one exception right now is earth science. But we have bent over backwards to try to make sure that our low number of classes remain. And Joe, is there any other exception to that?
I know my daughter had summer homework and she's like, Mom, I don't even know if I got into the class.
Yeah, you know, I got to be honest with you. In general, when we see low numbers of enrollment, that usually signals to us that maybe we shouldn't run the course. But this year, say it again?
That usually happens in APC classes and honors.
Yeah, but this year, we have been trying to run as much as we possibly can. So I can't think of, other than the earth science, I can't think of an example of a class that we actually got rid of.
There was one, Mrs. Segali's class, video class or some production class.
Environmental, yeah, what's in,
Senior class, that's probably the one she's in.
But you could call Ms. Yanko in the guidance office. She will catch you up to date on whether the class ran or not. Probably very close to the end of August.
there is one here about attendance. So, two things. If a student is present, but not physically present, the teacher will be able to choose present virtually, and we'll be able to choose present physically. This sounds crazy. I know this sounds totally bizarre, but this is a way for us to say, if for some reason we wanted to see how many times did that student go to school, that student couldn't say, yeah, but I was virtual, of course I was there. So there will be a way of taking attendance. That might look different in different grades, but because it could be something as simple as, at the end of this 40-minute block, you need to send me an assignment. And by sending the assignment, that teacher will see which students were there, right? It might not always be the traditional, I'm going to call a roll. I hope that makes sense. But also, teachers will have the option to take lunch requests also during attendance for the physical present students.
Lunch is going to be not an easy thing. There's going to be one choice of lunch, pretty much. As I said, the kids will not eat it in school. They'll pick it up or it'll be delivered to them at the last period of the day, depending upon their age. And we'll do the best we can with that. The exception is breakfast. We will eat it in the room if the kid opts for breakfast. Any parent can buy breakfast. Any parent can buy lunch. The survey demonstrated that a large majority were not interested in purchasing lunch, but we'll still have it. Back in the red. I can't hear you. I would not lie to you.
I just wanted to first say that the Board of Education, to you guys, the principals, this is the best plan I've seen. Like, seriously. What the other school districts are doing are crazy. I don't even know if I would be able to figure out what ended up. So, I was a little late. So, the plan's been approved by the state and the county, our plan, you said that? Our HEA is on board with it?
We did it. Did you email me?
Yes, they did.
I emailed you back. Yeah, that's okay. So, yeah, we did this plan very closely with HEA leadership from the start.
Okay, good. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that the numbers of people who are switching from in-person to virtual is going to change?
Yes.
drastically enough for the people who opted in person to be able to go in person full-time, not full-time, but half days?
That's a great question.
Good question.
The question is, if enough people go virtual, will we go full-time? If we could do it safely, the answer would be yes.
Like the first grade.
However, I do believe if we have any success the first 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to see a migration to the school as opposed to out of the school.
Okay, good.
But like I said, there's so many factors that a family must consider. I don't envy, people say, oh, your job is really hard. My job is easy compared to being a parent. God bless you.
And so, like, my son is a B-week.
Your friend what?
My son is a B-week.
Yep.
So on the A weeks, I have opted not, he's gonna stay at home. But if I change my mind and I wanna send him here for a virtual, that's offered through AlphaVest, so I would have to pay the
Yes.
$35 a day.
Yes. There's one possibility, and I hate to say this because sometimes I say things and I can't keep my word. I'm trying to work with AlphaVest to ascertain if during an AB schedule, I have some extra staff members that can help AlphaVest, thereby lower the cost. I don't know if they're allowed to do that even, but I rushed to get the program established, and yesterday I finalized it, and I'm very happy.
And then my last question is gonna sound very crazy. What is the minimum temperature to be able to send your child to school? Because I have 2 werewolves that run at about 100.
It's 100.4.
Okay.
That's 100.4 is the, ring the alarm bell.
My boys are 100.1 all the time.
100.4, that's it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So to clarify the phys ed thing, I'm getting a couple questions about this. Yes, students are required to have phys ed. Yes, phys ed can be virtual under these circumstances. So when the way it might look is, when your child goes home, your child may say, my phys ed teacher told me I have to do 25 jumping jacks and go play kickball, and this may be their assignment. It's unorthodox, but that would be their physical education. So when they get home, they may have some phys ed work to do. Please understand that.
Somebody, yes.
So there's all this talk about what's going to happen in the beginning of the year, but the only thing that I really haven't heard of is what's going to happen if this is all over. Like, say, January to February, New Jersey looks great. Everybody, there's no more sickness.
Then we are full-time back in school. Everything will be normal. Clubs will run, sports will run. I would pray that moment happens soon.
Yeah, we do want to be back. Trust me, we really do.
I'm going to go over here in the black.
The governor has issued this 6-territory county system that's supposed to be red, orange, yellow, green to tell us where we are. Well, how is that going to play into our attending school or not? Because you say county's in our group, and that's kind of a...
Like I said, unless the governor says close school, and unless I don't have enough staff members to man the school, or unless there's a terrible occurrence of outbreak or anything like that, we intend to be in school. And again, if you want to send your child, we're confident that we can do it. Can it fail? Yes, it can fail. Okay, in that case, we'll go 100% virtual until that January comes when we get that magic moment, but we can do this. I believe you had a question.
Who will be working on a contact tracer to identify that the children have symptoms or have a probable case? Will that be the nurse? Will that be the teacher? And how will communication for possible exposure be sent home? Will it be like a life letter?
It'll be quarantined 14 days. I didn't hear the beginning of the question.
Yeah, thank you. So for contact tracing, we have a little bit more information than maybe the last time we were here. If there is a situation where we know that a student has a probable case or a confirmed case, the nurses will communicate directly with Jim McDonald of the Department of Health at the county level, that Department of Health will lead us through contact tracing, which can be, especially in our district, can be very complicated with shared busing and things like that. Based on recommendations from the county health department, we will reach out then with further direction. But as a general rule of thumb, I would direct you just to those district guidelines on the website, which will tell you, like, in general, if we know you have a confirmed case, this is what you do. We have protocols to follow, but we still have to contact the Department of Health.
Joe mentioned the word nurse. We had a resignation today of a nurse. We are looking for an additional nurse. I'm very pleased that we hired an extra nurse, so we're still okay, 1 nurse per school, but we would love to have 5 nurses for the 4 buildings. So if you know somebody, please have them call me, we give them a job. Yes, sir.
Another tech. We provide a checklist. What should I have a headset for my daughter with a microphone attached to it? Windows 10 iPads, because not everybody's going to be given hardware. But we provide it ourselves. Have to provide a laptop.
No, our students have one-to-one Chromebooks.
What grade is your child?
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
They'll get a Chromebook.
First I'm hearing of it. Wonderful.
I'm glad you asked.
But the peripheral stuff, we won't provide a lot of peripheral stuff.
So headphones.
You're a tech guy, you gotta have that stuff all over the house.
So to sum up, it's grades 2 through 12 are your one-to-one Chromebooks. The younger students are going to be iPads. So we're working toward having every student in the district one-to-one. There may be exceptions here and there, but if you have any questions about it, I would invite you to email me. I'll make sure I get any clarification for you.
Anything else here? Yes. Sorry.
Questions, just bear with me. Virtual learning login instructions, how do we obtain that? Like, you said it's gonna be through Google
Meet, yeah.
How do we get the instructions on how to set that up for the kids and what their schedules are and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so most of this communication with students is going to come from your teachers. So what I would say is expect that teachers will share information out to you with instructions of how to join. It's different, but it's hard for me to make a general statement because, like with Ms. McFadden here, the way it's going to look at Durban is going to be a lot different than the way to look at the high school, because you're not going to expect your little ones to be, receiving emails. So
So it'll likely go through a Google Calendar invitation. Okay, which just click onto a link.
Notified in the first place how to get set up if they're, say, 100% virtual.
You'll have plenty of instruction on what you need to do as the school year begins. Our lead technologist wife just had a child last night. He is very busy for a few days, but he will be back, and the instructions will be simple, because I expect him to make the instructions so that I understand them. And as a dinosaur, that's important.
Second, for a kindergarten student, how do we go about getting a iPad or necessary equipment?
Well, the principal will be contacting you as to how to get it.
Okay, and how will they be contacting us? Through mail?
Probably through the mail or email.
Okay.
a lot of to this point, a lot of the building principals are sending out their own information. You will see in the last week prior to school, you'll get an address from this guy with a bunch of district-specific information. But know that you'll probably also be receiving information from your building principal with building specifics, because like I said, it's different for each building.
Okay. Can you just elaborate on the quote-unquote daycare or in-person off weeks? Specifically, is it going to be available to any age? And are they going to have to bring their own, say, iPad, or is that going to be supplied?
No, they'll have to bring their own. They'll have to bring the iPad. Okay. The kids who attend will bring the equipment that the school gives them.
Okay.
Then we got to get this room inspected by the state to make it approved. If that doesn't happen by the opening of school, We'll start it off at the middle school, which is already approved. But eventually we want to get the daycare here. And I have no idea if one person or 50 people are going to do it. So I can't elaborate too much on it. But the kids their virtual instruction will be supervised here, and they'll be able to accomplish it here.
Okay. And that'll be for all ages, any grade?
Right now, it's grades K to 5, right now.
Okay. Okay. And then, I don't know if you answered this, with the supplies, whatever necessary supplies that the kids are gonna need for school, that'll be mailed out or posted online or something?
I've already done it.
On the,
I go back on to the schools.
Okay.
To see it. I don't think the whole set that is up yet.
Okay.
But the other ones.
Okay. And then, say, sick days, they can just log in virtually at any time for any reason, say,
Yeah.
he's got 100.4.
Oh, yeah.
So even if he's in person.
No problem.
Okay. And then lastly, are there instructions anywhere on how to set up Power School or the login for that? Because we're kind of out of touch because we haven't been able, with kindergarten students, this is all new to us.
You have to set up the parent portal in Power
Yeah.
School?
Yep.
If you email me, I'll send it to you directly.
Okay.
I'm trying to avoid bothering Kyle right now because of his baby, but if you send me an email, I'll make sure you get it. Mr. D, now they're following up to these questions. The Alpha Best before and after care differentiated from the plan you're talking of during the day.
Right.
So the before care and after care will still run
As they have
as
in
it
the
is,
past.
always done in the past. Oh, Ms. McFadden, yes.
I can't hear you. I don't understand the word she said.
I'm gonna reiterate the question and the comment for the viewers at home. So Ms. McFadden is saying that she has communicated to the Durbin families already through email. If you have not received that email for some reason, you can email Ms. McFadden to get onto that list, or just check your spam folder. Chances are it's there. But if you have any problems, you can reach out to me or Ms. McFadden. We'll make sure we get you on there. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
last one.
last question is related to special education. I'm getting a lot of special education questions.
Shoot.
Is there a way to summarize, Mr. D, how services will be impacted by this? Will students still get their services? Will they get the same aids, PTOT, et cetera?
It is our obligation to support the IEP. So all therapies will be accomplished. All aids that are called for in the IEP will be accomplished. The only challenge we're having is the number of minutes that a child may be for a specific subject. Now, we didn't talk about this, but at the end of the day, our teachers are not leaving after 4 hours. There will be a time when they can virtually interact with their children after school. Depending upon the age of the kids, some kids will be burned by then, and that's not going to happen. But we will try to implement the IEP in terms of minutes per subject. That's our biggest challenge. Other than that, we're in good shape. If the kid gets 3 speech a week, that will be done. 3 PT, that will be done. We'll work it out. Good question.
Will those kids with IEPs, will they be able to stay after school if they need adult on an issue?
I can't hear you.
If a student has an IEP and they're in school that week, would they be able to stay after and get the extra assistance? Or?
Can students stay after school to get extra assistance?
Yes.
I can't answer that question because it's being studied at certain schools, but right now it's a long shot.
Yeah,
The teachers will have their lunch and their prep.
it's true.
The kid would have to wait.
I've had some volunteers for that. But it's, obviously nothing is simple these days. It's very complicated. So we're working on some stuff that I haven't told you about because, as I said, I don't want to make a statement that looks like a promise. And I failed on one, and that was the possibility of having the virtual kids at the schools while the school was in session. I just don't have the manpower for that. That's why I arranged the alphabet thing. All right.
And I am answering emails. Art answers emails all the time. Please reach out if you have specific questions. But remember, we have a meeting next week, next Thursday. If there's any new information, we will share it with you. We will live stream it again, just like this. We are an open book, and we are going to try to get answers if we don't have them immediately. So I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you.
God bless you. And go Packers.